should be just waiting for the thing to, there we go, where it's the scroll bar is moving along and we are live.
Excellent.
So there we go. There we go.
Okay, Jane, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Tim and Brent and Leslie. So are we all right to get going, Blair?
You guys are. I can't even get into Zoom effectively at this point. I don't want to hit done. Oh, man, where are you? That's YouTube Zoom. That's Zoom meeting. Let's try. That's Zoom notification.
Is this still, we're going on the part 3 of the stress? Is it?
Yes.
We're actually on part 4,
Four?
how we react or respond to stress.
Oh, okay.
There. I don't know. I tried that 3 times before. Now it worked. There we go.
Okay.
I am back. We are
You are
we are
back.
live.
Are we
and we are
ready
live.
We're ready
Yes,
to
we are.
open? Okay.
Yep, you betcha.
I'm giving it a 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the 306th episode of the Blair Dunkley Experience. My name is Patty. I'm a certified mind model method coach and your co-host tonight with Tim and Becky Graff. Your host tonight is Blair Dunkley. He's the creator of Mind Models, and he coaches and teaches here on this program for free. It is his free gift to you so that you can experience effective change in your life. So what are Mind Models? Mind Models are simple thought frameworks to help us put names and labels to how we think. And when we understand how we think, we can think more effectively and create identifiable, repeatable, and duplicatable behaviors needed to break out of stuck states. Personally, Mind Models have helped me overcome more than a decade of depression. I have been positively impacted in every area of my life, including my relationship with myself. So welcome for tonight. We look forward to getting to know you better.
Super. Hey, Jackie.
Welcome.
Welcome, welcome. Yes, exactly. So, yeah, did you want to kick that off there? Continue with this one, Patty?
Sure. So we're beginning the next segment. We've divided the concept of navigating stress into 4 sections. The first section took 3 parts: causes of stress and sources of stress. This is how do we, I want to make sure I get the one that syncs up here, how we react or respond to stress. So that's where we're going to be focusing tonight. The reaction to stress, often 60 to 70% of the time, is related to how we're brought up, to our experiences in growing up. And so my question to you for tonight is, what beliefs are you carrying about yourself, others, or your situation that might be increasing your perception of stress? So, Jackie, are you able to participate tonight, or are you just listening?
I think so. I've never been on a Zoom meeting in my car, and it sounds like it's over my speakers. Anyway, about my beliefs about stress and stuff like that, that's a tricky one because I don't know my beliefs. Like, those are really tricky for me to find out, and I only find out my beliefs if I try something different.
So it's in trying new things that you discover where your thinking has been coming from?
Yes, like limiting beliefs.
Yes, you're limiting beliefs, those kinds of things.
Yeah, or yeah, and it helps you create new ones because, like, go back to that airport thing. You know, now I know that I can deal with the stress of being at an airport and missing a flight and blah 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 blah. So it helps to create new ones, but the beliefs, those they're so hidden, I think, unless something kind of knocks up against them and shakes it, and you ask yourself a question. Wait a minute here, type of thing. Anyway,
So
that's
it's
just
like
my
when
thought.
it's like when you run up against something that isn't working. So as long as you're keeping the ball rolling, you're not really noticing those things until something doesn't work. And then you're put into curiosity and, okay, what about this isn't working? And what might I do differently? And that's where you're saying you're identifying those things that might not be true anymore.
Yeah, but I usually identify them as assumptions.
Ah,
I don't necessarily tag them or name and label them, as you would say, as a belief.
okay.
I think, I've been making an assumption here. Maybe that would lead me down the path to breaking down a belief.
Mhm.
If I'm noticing I'm a human, that means that I've got some sort of belief. Like, yeah, I don't know. That's a tricky one.
Yeah, it is a tricky one. Becky, you had some thoughts when we were preparing this on identifying and testing assumptions. Would you like to tell us more about how assumptions are impacting? Jackie is talking about creating or noticing assumptions, but not necessarily tying them to beliefs. So could you tell us more about identifying and testing assumptions?
Yeah, so Jackie, I think for me, I'm very similar in that I notice the assumption first, and I'm not necessarily conscious of the belief that's driving that or the belief that I might be reinforcing based on the assumption and what I do with it. Does that ring?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot I'm still on mic.
No, did you have something else to share that came up for you with that?
Well, no, I just wholeheartedly agree because, like, a belief is so deep.
Mm.
Some assumptions, for me, are more recognizable, noticeable, because it causes a feeling. But a belief does cause feelings, but I just feel that they layer down beliefs,
Mhm.
where assumptions are floating more on the surface might lead you to ask more questions into your life. I wonder what I believe around this. I don't know. I've never really kind of asked myself those questions, I don't think. Be interesting
Yeah.
to investigate that.
Yeah, so for me, what I notice a lot with my assumptions is it's the internal self-talk. Anybody else relate to that? Like you're getting ready to do something, and all of a sudden there's this dialogue going on in your head about what the thing is. Blair, cool.
Yep, definitely.
Yes, absolutely.
And so the assumption part, or the ability to identify that and utility or have it not like impact stress or again reframing often comes down to being number one aware of what's actually happening. So within that dialogue in your head, what assumptions are you making about the situation or other people? Is it something that is real? Is it something that you've tested? Do you have any external evidence of the thing that's going on in between your ears? Or is it more of just this narrative that is literally creating stress for you? I know for me, have had many experiences, and I'm curious for you all that I think about today. Has there been a moment in time today where you can think back about an internal dialogue that you've been having about either a situation or other people that has either created you to take action or prevented you from taking action on that thing?
Hmm.
Yeah, I had something like that happening. I was at my friend's place. I'm actually in my car right now heading back home, but I was painting the door for the second day. And I asked him, please get a thin roller, not like a roller that pulls on a lot of paint.
Mhm.
Anyway, in the baking heat, using mixed paint, blah, 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 it was not going on well, and I was getting really frustrated and going, I knew we didn't get the right thing, and I was mad when we went into it. And I made the assumption before I actually put the bloody thing on there. I mean, it did make a friggin' mess. Well, I fixed it, but I stopped myself during that, going, I'm feeling really angry, and I'm wondering, I'm creating all of this stress here, making like thinking that I couldn't do the job properly with the equipment I'd been provided for, and I was given a pail and nothing to roll it in, and yada yada yada, and I was just piling it all up. And I had to really stop myself because I said, "This is not good for me." Now,
So,
like,
so
that's
Jack,
just like a little assumption, yeah.
so can you capture, so what specifically was the assumption that you were making? You were cutting out a little bit. I didn't quite catch it.
Oh, the assumption would have been that it's going to be a mess.
Okay, it's gonna be a mess. Okay.
And it's the front door. It's the entrance to the house. Anyway, whatever, like, yeah, so you can see I was just like, however, I just accepted the way it was, and he was very pleased with it, but anyway, I don't want to go on about this, but did you have another question?
So when you had the assumption that it was going to make a mess, did you test that assumption yourself?
Oh, absolutely. I started slapping it on there really angrily, splashed got paint in my eyes. I was frustrated.
So what did you find out to be true about that assumption or not?
Well, it was very true, and I just had to make the best of it. But what I chose to do, is not let the all of the assumptions, like the negative energy build, and just accept it as is, because it was good enough for what he wanted. I assume, like, anyway.
So very cool. So what I got from that, Jackie, is your assumption that the tool was going to make a mess was accurate from your perspective, but did it impact the satisfaction of the person who was doing the work? Were they happy with it?
I was doing the work.
She was. Okay, I misunderstand that.
He loved it. He said, "Oh, good job. I like the Texas look." I'm like, okay. Yeah, there's a few little Texas in there. Just don't touch it. you know?
Very cool. So thank you for sharing that, Jackie. Does anybody else have something that they noticed maybe, or the internal? Blair, go ahead.
One of the things that I notice is my glucose level, like my blood sugar level, can impact my level of frustration. That impacts my level of stress that I'm feeling, as well as when you pair that with either software or computer issues. Thank you for laughing. Yes, perfect. It's like you guys can relate. Then that stress sort of like right through the roof. And then I go, I have to park myself and try and not yell, but actually park myself long enough to get some more food in me so that I can relax for a minute and shift my my blood sugar level so that I can balance myself out again. But in that, identifying my state is critical, because if I don't identify my state, I don't go and get food. So, and then I just stay frustrated with, and hangry too. Yeah, very hangry. So somebody knows. Yes, yes.
I carry snacks all the time for him.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Something that you've noticed in either
I
today?
want to just take a quick minute and welcome Lisa. Is it Lisi or Lisa?
Hi, it's Lise. I did attend session a few years ago, and
right
now I'm doing some clearing work, energetic work, and other stuff. I'm, doing freelance work, taking a step back from work, and just tuning in tonight after a healing session. And, I've been doing a lot of work on it's not mine, but I release it with love, forgiveness, golden healing light, whatever. Just let it go. It's not mine. And to know what is mine, to accept it, to acknowledge, and just to say that, yep, release it for the greatest good of all and move on. Not always.
Perfect.
So just continue. And what I do as well that helps me is I've been doing Qigong with Lee Holden. If
yeah.
anybody's interested, it's 39 US for a monthly subscription between 8 to 12 live classes per month. And it's access to replay for 2 weeks if you want. But that's been my pillar of stability for, it'll be 3 years in January, along with meditations from other different sessions that I've been attending. So I haven't been going to the acupuncturist or naturopath for the year and a half, and just trying to eat good and clean source food. And sometimes I work on site with other people, and the last week it was the case. And I just ate a whole bunch of things, and the next day I said, okay, what have I done? You know, and it's like I've eaten that person's emotions. You know, I took all of that in, so it's just to release that. You know, I don't eat chips anymore. I mean, there's a lot of things that I've cleaned up, but just to say that, yeah, clearing and keeping the path open so that I can thrive and have more fun and enjoy life.
Well, Lise, we're really glad that you've chosen to spend time with us tonight. Jane, would you like to put the free gift? Blair has a free gift for people. I don't know if you've received it in the past, but it's going to go in the chat, and it's a link that you might enjoy on probably the most effective mind model stack that he has, which are called the 3 E's: effective versus ineffective, external versus internal, and evaluation versus judgment. So
Yeah.
We welcome you with that. And Becky, I'll let you get back to the
Well, I
discussion.
just wanted to mention, Lisa,
Yeah.
I generally remember you, like you look familiar. So yeah, I remember you from a few years ago, actually, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Anyway.
Now, you know, I've been doing work as a sign language interpreter more on a freelance basis. I thought, you know, I took early retirement from work in school. And with all the tech things that came up, I had to learn the virtual reality and get, you know, caught up with that and whatnot. So it's a different world. And now it's more like, can I go outside for a walk again? It's been hot. I'm in Ottawa. So we've had a lot of rain, but it's just to go and be out in nature as well. Like I used to go walking a lot. That really cleared my mind.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for those gifts and the models that you had. Like when I looked at the Facebook and the different documents, I thought, wow. So I'm so grateful that you were offering these sessions back then, and to the group that was there. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
You're welcome.
I don't know, then this would have been before, or you came on before I actually had my book out. So Ultimate Mind Hacking. So,
Jane, do
yeah.
you have a link that you could put up for that?
Yeah. It's about $20 or so on Amazon. It's pretty cheap. There we go. That's it. Anyway, there you go. If you'd like a little bit more. So yeah, it's a quick, easy read.
It's a powerful read, Blair. You've packed a lot of value into that book. So
Yes,
definitely recommend grabbing that.
Thank you. Yeah.
So what we're talking about are assumptions. Okay, so the conversations in our heads that either create us to do something or really create this idea of a outcome that may or may not be true. In my experience, dealing with some pretty heavy things, as well as some not so heavy things, my assumptions are really important for me to take a look at and really test. For an example, there was a point in my life, most of everybody on this knows that my husband and I had a tragedy in 2020 where we lost both of our daughters in a tragic accident. It involved water and a whole bunch of things. And mind models were really the backbone for us being able to make practical strides through that. And one of the things as it relates specifically to assumptions in my journey was this assumption that if I was in certain areas or around certain things, that I was going to be significantly triggered, that I was going to fall apart, that I was going to embarrass myself. The list went on and on and on. Okay, so this internal dialogue about what I believed or assumed, right, would happen if I put myself in that situation. One of the pivotal moments for me in the assumption and either reinforcing an ineffective belief, as we were talking about, Jackie, sometimes those assumptions are those first things that pop up, and then what
Yeah.
we do with them or don't do with them typically reinforce or solidify a deeper belief about that thing. For me, I had my nieces who wanted to come over. We had a hot tub, and they wanted to go out and get in the warm water because it was cold outside. And so it was going to be Tim, myself, two little girls about the same age as my daughters, and my sister-in-law and brother-in-law. And immediately into my head popped, I can't do that. The assumption immediately was there, I can't do that. And all the reasons why I couldn't do that. And so I had to take a minute and ask myself, can you actually do that? Like, can you physically walk outside, climb up the steps, and get into the water? The answer to that is yes. I had the physical capacity to do that thing. So, is the statement I can't actually true? Okay, it wasn't that I physically couldn't do it. It was more emotionally, I was worried about what might happen if I chose to do that set of steps. So I told Tim, not doing it. I can't do it. I can't do it right now. And after I said, like, I can't 3 times, I'm like, wait a second. I had that realization, like, functionally, you actually can do this. Now, you don't want to. And all of the reasons are valid based on a whole slew of things. So I decided that, Tim, I'm not going to go out. So they went out, got in the water. I went to the back bedroom, had some ugly cry time. And during that, I had this kind of real hardcore conversation with myself. Like, you do realize that you have no idea if you can or cannot handle the situation because you haven't tested it. You have not tested to see if what you believe or what you think is going to happen is actually going to happen. So, are you going to allow your fear to rule you in this moment? Are you going to show your nieces and everybody else around you that you're not willing to work through this? Had a really, really stern internal dialogue with
Wow,
myself.
that's a tough one. You did
It
a
was a big
great
one.
job, but wow.
So what it came down to was a negotiation. All right, you physically can go out and do it. You don't want to. Here's what is causing the fear around that. Water, bubbles, little kids, their faces may go under the water. They may be giggling and splashing. You're going to be experiencing the temperature difference between cold outside air, warm inside, and then having to get out again. So all of the what's, what might I experience? And then I made myself a negotiation. 5 minutes. You're going to go out and get into the water. You're going to go do it and give yourself 5 minutes. Sit there, stay there, do your thing. And if in 5 minutes you are still feeling all this anxiousness and all of these things that you believe are going to happen, you can get your butt out and go back inside. So deep breathing, box breathing, chanting to myself, you can do this. It's walking out, getting in the water. It's not what you experienced before, what's real in this moment. I was able to go climb into the hot tub, sit down. I had my watch timer on legitimately, like all of the feelings going on the inside. And the really cool thing happened is about 2.5, 3 minutes in, I was able to look at my nieces and nephews. I was able to survey what was going on around me. And I started to feel a shift in my emotions. And it wasn't terror. It wasn't fear. It was confidence. I did it. I'm 2 minutes in. I got this, right? I can do this. 2 minutes in. And I was able to stay for what, 45 minutes? I was able to stay and enjoy that time and that experience with my nieces and be able to face that real hard assumption, okay, based on historical evidence and prove it wrong, which then increased my ability to have a belief that it may be hard. I may be feeling all these things, but I get to choose what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it, and for how long I'm going to do it for. So the purpose in me sharing this with you guys is the power of assumptions. When they're not tested, they can keep us stuck. When we choose to lean in and ask the question, how do I know? How do I know that this is or isn't going to be what I think it's going to be? Or that this person's going to do or not going to do what I think they're going to do? The power in testing it is huge because you never know what's on the outside. We cannot have certainty of anything until it's done and we can evaluate historical evidence. That is the only place certainty plays in our world. And so these assumptions, can you guys imagine the level of stress that I was dealing with this whole idea that I was going to mushroom clown it to like light on, like all the things. I was manufacturing this insane amount of stress. And yet when I chose to test that assumption, 2 minutes in, I gave myself a five-minute buffer. 2 minutes in, I started to feel a complete shift in the opposite. So when you think about the story, the conversation that we're having between our two ears about anything, the power in being able to ask, how do I know? And then figure out what it looks like for you to test that can dramatically decrease our stress and help us build the self-confidence for next time, because it will never be a one and done, because we have the mantras and the conversations situationally all the time. And I'm curious for you guys.
Before you go too much further, I'd like to also point out another aspect of assumptions. So in everything that Becky has literally stated here, what was her story? Okay, Becky, you don't get the answer yet. So Leslie, and then I'm going to go to Jane, and then I'm going to go to Brent. So Leslie, what was her story before the story came out of her mouth? What existed before her story? She generated that story in her head. Like it just is like a split second before. What existed? We can't hear you for some reason. History of a past event. Yeah, that's true. But there's actually a split second before that history of a past event kicks in there. I want to explore that minute fraction, because this is where we know that we have an assumption, and then we start filling it with a history of a past event. Sometimes. Other times we invent things, just flat out invent things. Jane.
Okay, so the history was there, part of the story, but also all the feelings that she had that were created because of the story.
Yeah, but what was okay? I'll warn you about this. This is really quite a trick question.
Okay, so what I'm seeing from a question concepts is, where and when. We're not now, but that's where she went.
That's where right, but she wasn't in this place, or she was in this place to go to some other place. What was that place?
Oh, it's internal.
It is internal, absolutely. But what is it?
In the past?
Not necessarily yet.
The limbic system.
Very close.
Hmm.
Brent, do you have any idea?
You know, first thing that came to my mind was self-doubt, like a belief in self-doubt. That was the first thing, but I mean, after
This is the thing that happens
Yeah.
right before you identify your self-doubt. Now, this is absolutely common, and I don't think I've ever taught this
no, it must not
at
be,
least
'cause I can't.
tonight, like on this stuff. I've taught it in coach training, life skills coach training, and I think I taught it in my coach training briefly for my model method coach training.
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Mm.
Patty was thinking she's in a Y. Nope, not yet.
Lori.
Or sorry, Lori thought she was in a Y. I'm sorry.
She was reactive.
It's the thing that happens before she's reactive, and it's a very short time frame. It took me years to figure this out, but this is true for all assumptions. And you apply it in your story.
There's certainty. I mean, in the assumptions, I'm not sure.
No, that's what she got out of this. That's what she did as a result of this.
Yeah.
And it's really a tough one. This took me years. Tim, did you want to give it a go?
Well, the first thing that came up for me is a thought, and it's that thought is of it's judgment, it's self-judgment.
What happens before it's sort of that thought? That moment.
Are you alluding to the attitude, like the perception of the thing?
Yeah, but these are where beliefs and assumptions and life and whatnot, and Lori's saying fear, and I'm going, no, still, it might be based eventually. The fear may help you manage it, but it doesn't. You have to fill this thing in with all of this stuff that we're talking about here. It gets filled in.
Blair, are you asking the question before Becky decided to share it, or before she actually took action during the event?
Before she just was on the verge of identifying it. And right at that moment, she goes, her brain's sort of like, and then she decides to start building whatever assumptions she's building.
Well, usually I know I'm making an assumption when the emotions are out of proportion to the situation or the danger around, like the real physical live danger.
Right when you're aware of that, I want the split second before that. You got to right back to that spot in your description, right to the spot of whatever.
Really, I get curious because I know that something feels off. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, something's off here.
When you know something feels off, that's the part right before you got curious, but that's something that feels off. Patty.
I was going to say, I'm sorry, could that be considered threat when you're feeling threat?
It could be threat, it could be fear, it could be all kinds of stuff.
Well, fear comes out of that, but that something's off is that instinctual reaction to a threat.
That right at that moment before it's something that's off. This thing gives that off feeling or fear or threat or wherever it is.
Well, you'll have to fill us in. I think we've given our best shot at that.
Okay, you have done really well. Okay, so the key element for me is the thing that you must make assumptions with is when you're gapped out in information. You must fill it in with whatever, with the fear, with the threat, with the story, with the all the two children's faces, like everything that Becky said. But before that is there, normally we do not feel a gap in our brain. And it took me years of observation to catch people literally just holding their breath for that fraction of a second, for maybe a second or two, right before they kick into, oh, it's this and this and this, which is their processing time to manufacture the assumption. Okay? And it's that gap. It's the I don't, it's like I can't even say, if I say I don't know, that's not accurate enough, because it's, you know that you don't know. It's that moment before you realize that you don't know. Go for it.
So I've experienced what you're talking about, so it helps
Right.
paint the picture. It's like the oh crap moment. Like, oh crap.
Yes,
And then,
same thing.
And then
That's
oh
right.
crap. And
And it's that thing where you don't know where the crap's going to land, and you say, oh crap, and it's like, okay, now yeah.
And it creates that emotional strain and stress, like hyper focused as well, like, oh. And
that's
then
right.
and you
That's
start
the
looking
look.
around like curiosity, okay, crap, all these things pulling from data because of the gap that you have, the assumptions, oh, it might be this, or so-and-so might be attempting this. That makes a whole lot of sense. But I don't even remember this in the belief cycle training that you did, a coach training, that oh crap, and then moment. So I
No.
No,
appreciate
because I did it briefly when I did identifying assumptions.
Oh.
So
Okay.
Blair, I need to put this in a nice little.
And I think I drew a wall with bricks that were missing, and said, you know, when we build a wall, we have most of the bricks there, but sometimes there are bricks that are missing. We have to fill that information in with, well, the lack of the brick there. We go, we can't build this wall if we don't have something there. So we make up information and say, this is what it is. Jane.
So is it like negative space?
It's like a negative space, but it's a thing that we had a negative space, and we had to put something in that negative space to not make it negative space, because we can't cope with it as negative space.
The gap.
Okay,
The
so
gap.
the gap though is a, so if you're going to look at it as a wall, it's, the gap is like a bubble of lack of information. It's
Bingo.
And I can remember very specifically, now that you've described it that way, when I recognized the information that was missing from my story in the past, that now it made the story understandable.
Bingo.
Prior to that, I didn't have an understanding of what happened until that new little bubble
Right.
appeared and was able to fill in that spot.
Exactly. And so that, when we can fill in that spot, we have to make up information. Like, okay, judgments are required to be made. How come? Because we, like, the universe abhors a vacuum. So, like, if there's nothing there, we put something there. Everything moves to like, if there's less or nothing of something, stuff will move to that empty space. It will always get filled.
Right.
But what do we do in our mind? Because we can't get new experiences to fill that space right away, because we have to test. What we do is exactly what Becky said, is create, this is my assumption that I can't do all of this. And then she asked the question, is this accurate? Did I test this? And the answer was no. Can I test this? Yes. 5 minutes, go out to the hot tub, do all these things, and make myself do that. Great.
So
Okay.
when I have to test things, like I remember during COVID, and sorry that everybody was not here when I've given this example, but like that I would fall apart going out, putting the garbage out. And it was the
Yep.
safety versus comfort. So she also had to make a choice
Yeah.
in that moment that she was going to choose discomfort over comfort, or
Correct.
yeah. I mean, that's a beautiful step to be able to do that and come out the other end, because it's such a relief. It's a relief. It's just like, oh my God. Wow. Like, I didn't fall apart. I didn't shrivel up and die. The earth did not pull me in.
Right.
All of those assumptions that you just build on. And one thing I realize sometimes when I'm worrying, that one thing that brings me back to the present, funny enough, is that saying, he who worries in advance worries twice, because I know I'm future based and I'm not in the present.
Exactly.
Future past based, missing the present. Sorry. Yeah.
Yep.
Like, your toes are in past and future. And but Becky was able to get herself into the present, into the now, get resourceful, and test it.
Absolutely correct.
And then update.
Bingo. Thank you.
Yes,
Took
a few
literally was
minutes and
opening my
30
mouth to
seconds.
say that. Literally going to say, and then update. And
Well, did
that's
you
where
notice? Yes.
that's
Did
where
you
the
notice
transformation. Sorry, that's where the transformation happens.
Okay. Did y'all notice in Becky's example, just like Blair said, we're so used to the 3 E's, that we don't want to be internal, we don't want judgment, but there is still a place for all those things. They just may or may not be effective in the moment. And Becky's
Exactly.
use of internal self-talk, which can be self-judgment, it can be damaging, it can hold us stuck, but she used her internal self-talk to self-coach, to move her
Correct.
forward, to
Yes,
to
because
encourage her along the way. And you can do this 5 minutes, that whole bargaining thing.
Okay.
That conversation was an internal conversation that she used to coach herself.
It was, but it had one key attribute to make it effective. What was that attribute? And you haven't named and labeled it. She did everything that you just said. And every time people do this, but it's effective, it has this one critical attribute attached.
She got curious. She got curious about her situation, and she asked questions.
No, way more than that, because all of that can stay internal.
Oh, she externalized it. She accompanied it with a behavior.
She tested it in the real world. So she took all of her internal hypotheses and tested it in the real world.
Right.
And I bet you that if Becky had got in there and started to feel uncomfortable around the 1 minute, she would have been failing fast forward, being resourceful in the moment, trying to deal with what was actually going on with her right there, right now.
Okay, go for it, Becky.
That's exactly what was happening for the first 60 seconds.
Right.
Yes, I know. Yes,
and then as that narrative kept on, so again, internal self-coaching, externally verified by what I was seeing and hearing and experiencing, naming, labeling what is, okay, able to reinforce this idea of, okay, now what am I feeling about it? Is my threat level as high, or is it starting to incrementally decrease? So that's how come around the 2.5 minute, I'm like, I might actually be able to make 5 minutes. I think I can do this. And so that continued. And when I hit that 5 minute mark, the emotional stress load, not that I didn't have the dregs of it, but I was very consciously aware and very keyed into what was actually happening.
Yes.
And seeing the story, updating that I just did this for 5 minutes. Let's see if I can do it for 10.
Falling forward.
15, and at 45. Yeah, and I was drained. Like I was
Yep.
exhausted mentally, physically, and emotionally, but I was like, I just did this thing for 45
Yep.
minutes. It was very empowering, very, very empowering because of challenging the assumption for truth or not. Is it true? How do I know? How can I test it?
Bingo.
Yeah. And the next time you have an event that you can relate back on and say, hey, if I was able to do that, I'm probably going to be able to do this. At least give yourself the benefit of the doubt.
But
Can I
see, this is where, and I want Jane to be able to get in here pretty quick too. But this is where she did not build her belief based on feelings, because we don't. We build beliefs on behaviors that generate feelings that we then form new beliefs with. Okay? And
Yeah.
it
Could you say
changes
that
our
again?
attitude.
Can you say that again, Blair?
Well, technically, we take our behavior, we do the behavior, and we're constantly testing that behavior that Becky's doing, which then goes, hey, I just did this thing. It's working. Like, she tests it. She's curious at this point, more so than anything else, but she's just starting to notice she can do this. And when that occurs, she's starting to shift her feelings. When she's starting to shift her feelings, she says, I think I can do this, which is the beginning of a belief. Then she goes, how much more can I do? Which is adding on to testing the behavior even more, which is, hey, I'm doing more of this, evaluating it and staying there longer, building that behavior, building the feeling of I can do this, and believing she can do even more.
Yep. That's exactly the process I went through when I was learning how to scuba dive. I was so scared of getting in the water. Like, I don't swim very well. So anyway, long story, but yes, each time I go in, I build up a little bit more self-confidence. Now I'm able to let fish come even close to me and even reach out and try to touch them, where before, if I saw a fish, I'd swim off in the other direction, freak out. Oh my God, it's going to touch me.
Yep.
So I know that's completely different, but it's the same process.
Yes, it is the same process. Okay,
Can I ask a question?
go for it, Jane.
And I don't know if it's important or not, but Tim was there. Did you make a conscious decision not to get in her way of discovering what she needed on her own? It's by not okay. So like what I'm thinking, what I'm wondering is, was there words of encouragement, or did you just sit back and let her process and find her own understanding, but just be there, just be present as a support, but not get in her way? Did that make sense?
Tim, did you do
Sorry.
that?
Our-
Apologies, our internet keeps crashing. I honestly missed that, Jane.
One more time, please.
Okay. I was curious on whether you stayed out of her way. You just sat there, was physically supportive, but not trying to coach her through her own process, but allowed her the space to do it herself.
Yes, honestly, the answer to that is yes. She mentioned before all of this that she wasn't going to come out, and my awareness of Becky is that when she says she's not going to do something, I just need to give her a minute, because typically it means she's going through this process and she's either going to work through it or she won't. And so, yeah, honestly, I just give her time and space. And if she asks for support, I'm there and willing to give it. But usually, yeah, I just let her walk through her process.
Okay. From a coaching standpoint, is that hard?
Yes.
I think the dynamics too, in a couple relationship, especially when you're working with somebody that you really care about, the natural tendency is to want to fix or to help.
Yep.
And in this specific scenario, these kinds of things, it's self, situation, other. He understands that he's part of the situation, but he's other. And me being able to initiate and own my part is essential. Is essential. So out of deeper care and concern, sitting on his hands, if you will, and saying, I'm here if you need me, and making that known is much, much more effective for me as an individual, so that I can develop my own process, reframe my belief, test my own assumptions, because he can't do any of that for me. He could tell me it's going to be okay, and I'm going to flip him off because it's not okay. It doesn't feel okay in the moment. But as I'm testing assumptions and working through that, I'm the one that's in the driver's seat of my life. I'm the one that's owning my role, knowing that I have support if needed. And he has done that for me in many, many, I could give you 1,000,001 different scenarios where I've done something similar and I've been like, hey, I'm telling myself these stories.
Yeah, you guys are frozen.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, they froze right in the middle of that.
shoot.
You froze. Telling the story is where you were at when you froze.
So
You were
the short
saying
is when I want to test something and I feel like I need more support, Jane, I'll ask Tim to facilitate the specific things that I believe or that I assume that I need, so that I can then test and evaluate. Does that make sense?
I remember one thing. I'm just jumping.
Jackie,
Anyway.
yeah, okay.
I lost Jackie too.
Yeah, Jackie, your mic is on and off.
I remember one thing about getting in somebody's process. Like if someone's crying and you hand them a Kleenex type of thing. This is like going way, way back into interrupting somebody's process. And
You keep on hitting your mic accidentally. You turn off your mic button. Jackie, sorry. You're back on mute. You self-muted. Oh, okay. Okay, all good. Okay, anyway, one of the things that I was going to say is there is a very appropriate time to support people and to say, I believe in you, you can do it and whatnot. But right on that very first go, that's not the time. Because you, Becky, you say, I'm going to flip you off if you get in my way here. Like as a coach, I wanted to support my students, but I learned very rapidly from getting really strong feedback from when people were testing things out the first time. They've got to walk that path themselves. But once they've done it and they forget that they walked that path, you can remind them. And then later on down the line, you can do it, you can do it. Yes, that's just a reminder that they've done it before. You can do it again. Like, yes, you can do this. Great job.
And this whole process that we're talking about really ties into another mind model, which is IBER.
Yep.
Because in my story, and I'll let Tim go more into this, but in my story, I had a very real result that I wanted. I wanted to see what would happen. And so my intention was, I'm going to go out for 5 minutes. I'm going to do the thing. And so by doing the behavior, it allows me to evaluate what was or wasn't effective.
Yep.
Effective, yes.
Unfortunately, they froze yet again. Okay, so
well, one of the things then that I noticed I'll get back to IBER when you guys, now you've thawed, but I'm wondering when we talk about self-confidence and testing things, which is part of building self-confidence, self-confidence is building a belief in yourself through your behaviors. If you're going to self-identify your effective use of skills, attitudes, and behaviors, that self-confidence is actually the same process as testing assumptions.
It is the same thing. It's not like it is. That's how you do it. But self-confidence is always done through a testing process. Always built through a testing process.
Yep.
Tim,
And
would you like
you
to
have
talk a
to
little
do
bit
it
about
yourself.
IBER?
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, Tim,
Yeah,
you can
hopefully,
jump in there and do IBER.
There's a pretty nasty storm going on outside, so our internet's being super finicky. But yeah, IBER is actually a process that when we have this internal self-talk, this is a way for us to process forward with that self-talk. And as been put in the comments, there's first the intention, the behavior, the evaluation of that, and then the result, which is ultimately the outcome. And through Becky's process of, you know, what is my intention? What is the result that I want? I want to be able to go out, get in the hot tub, work through this feeling that I'm having. That is the intention. So then she's taking those incremental behaviors on the way out to the hot tub, getting in the hot tub. Throughout that entire process, there is the intention in her mind, the behaviors that she's then evaluating to ultimately get to the result of that 45 minutes in the hot tub. And you're incrementally doing this over and over again as you're going forward and working through those feelings that are overcoming you. And one of the big ones that was popped into the chat, and I know that Jackie spoke to this earlier, was also the safety versus comfort. That also worked into that equation, and you're constantly asking yourself, okay, am I safe? Yes. Am I just uncomfortable? Yes. And that is part
Massively.
of, yes, massively. And that keeps coming. And then as you're walking through that IBER process and you're keeping what's real in mind, that's the other thing, is bringing yourself to the present and what is now. And because that is constantly going through this process as well. And whether you're safe and comfortable, that IBER can honestly be a process that keeps you moving forward in those uncomfortable situations.
And the size of IBER, sometimes when we think like this result is like this massive timeline, but sometimes it's 30 seconds, it's 5 minutes, it's 3 hours, it's a day. It really depends on the thing that you're attesting, the assumption, or that thing that's maybe not working for you that you want to work through. Setting an intention with a desired result and then behaving with evaluation helps you thin slice to build the self-confidence in yourself. Maybe it was 30 seconds. Okay. And Blair, would you mind sharing like how you've been using this recently?
Oh man. I am going through a lot of health challenges with my prostate cancer. My prostate cancer got cured, or basically it's done. However, radiation is the real killer here. You know, it's been just massive amounts of issues with the radiation. And I'm having more issues with the radiation than I ever did with the prostate cancer. But the prostate cancer was going to kill me. But the radiation makes it extremely uncomfortable, but isn't going to kill me, at least not for another 30 years. So is what they said. So anyway, but I now have to get my body readjusted to all the damage that was done with the radiation. How this all fits in is I have to make things incremental. I got to keep myself in the moment because, oh God, some days it is so easy to get completely overwhelmed with the pain, the issues, all the challenges that I have with this and the amount of rest that I need. Like I'm on my couch, somewhat reclined, just so that I take pressure off my bottom because that is aching like nobody's business. And it's like all of the issues that I'm having with that. So that, and on top of that, I have a couple hips that need to be replaced. So I've got that pain as well. Now, I had one other thing, which I won't get into, but that first pain, well, actually I will. When you have prostate cancer, your urethra flows through the prostate. That gets irradiated badly, and in some cases, it shrinks down. So if you've ever had a urinary tract infection, or past a kidney stone, think about that like full time. So for like 3 months. So, well, 3.5, 4 months actually for me before I was able to get surgery and get it opened up back up again and that sort of thing. So that's back to near normal. But again, it's like, okay, that one part of my body is now working back to highly functional. Not quite as perfect as it was before, but very close. Now I've got to get the next part of my body taken care of, and then I've got to get my hips done. So it's one thing after another that is all there. So if I could replace my entire pelvis and plug in a new one with all the body part, I'd be fine. Like everything would be working, but it's not. So it's one thing at a time, and recognizing that this incremental change has to be, done over a long time. So you got to hold on to the change, and when that date is to see the surgeon, when that date is to see the doctor, when that, all these things, and build in those pieces. So it's what is the next set of behaviors that can change me to where I need to go. So I'm building in IBER with this intention. I've got a desired result, get back to normal or a new normal, like whatever. I just was on a call yesterday with a guy that's a quadriplegic that used to live in the States. He's somebody that David Gonzalez knows. He's a 7-figure earner. He does great stuff with his online training and whatnot. And I talked with him for just about an hour. But as a quadriplegic, he moved down to Mexico to be able to get highly effective, but more responsive healthcare. So, and he moved down there from the US and more affordable. So I could pay what, 28,000 for a new hip here and still have to wait months. Down there, I could pay like 6,000-7,000 and get it done in a week or two. So, yeah, but first I got to get my butt healed. That's the first thing first. So,
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
How does the size of your now impact this journey that you've got going on?
You know what? Some days I have to really watch my past, future self. And I have to bring myself back into a now. And what you said, sometimes I have to ask myself, literally, I've done this. It's only happened when actually you're not around, when you're not here. But when I'm having a tough night, I go, Blair, are you okay right now? In other words, can you survive right now? And then I go, yes, I am. Then I wait for a few seconds in some cases. Are you okay now? Yes, I'm okay now. I've also taken to telling myself what to do and going, like telling myself next foot, next foot, next foot, because the hips hurt. a lot some days. And so I have to make myself walk. I have to make things happen. And it's not fun, but I have to do these. It's literally survival.
So
So
what I'm hearing, Blair, please tell me if this is accurate. The smaller you're now, the more effective you are at managing the challenges. The smaller you're now.
yes, but sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes I have to make my now bigger so that I can see progress instead of, yeah, exactly. So it's actually modifying the size of now and bringing it not really much more than the size of a day. My now is today. So that I can count like days to my next time I get a chance to get a doctor's appointment. Like I had a doctor's appointment, telephone appointment this morning, which was huge. Like I got like a lot of things coming in, like a referral to an appropriate surgeon. I got appropriate antibiotics for what's going on with me, and steps and stages, and a doctor that is now aligned with improving my health, like, and she wants to drive this thing forward, which is great. I finally got somebody on my side, I felt like, and that's important, so that I see the size of that now being able to be stretched going forward.
So you're actually living in more than one now. You've got little bitty nows for coping.
Yep.
And you've got larger nows like appointment to appointment, doctor to doctor, or,
well, chunks in there, usually
store.
not the same day. Like, and so I don't really go much beyond the size of the day. I'm okay today. Let's check in tomorrow. I'm okay today. Let's check in tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't like, I've tried stretching it out more than that, and it gets too unwieldy.
Okay.
And it makes it harder for me to cope. And it makes it easier for me to fall apart and not see my improvement.
So can I ask you one question about that, Blair?
Sure.
So,
and then Jackie also wants to ask. Yeah.
Jackie, you go first, and then I can ask mine if it's relevant.
Oh, I prefer you ask the question because I'm going to give an example. So it's
okay.
Yeah.
So for me, when you're talking about size of now, one thing that I've noticed over time, if it's a similar assumption, different context, that I find that projecting to the future, to like if it's an event, for example. So in the past, I've experienced this 2-day event. So if I have a 2-day event coming up and the assumption inside is, oh my gosh, it's 3 days. Oh my gosh, am I going to be able to handle it? That dialogue, I'm able to look at what was before historically and then project, okay, so what would be reasonable for 3 days? You got 2 because you've already done it. So what might that look like for that 3rd day? It helps me to be able to project event-wise timeline inside my size of now and then keep it tight to 1 day at a time. You did day 1 and then you did day 2 and then you did day 3. So I don't know if that helps, Patty, like the compare and contrast to generally I was okay in this timeline, but specifically I'm still working on my RFN, like incremental behaviors in the moment.
Right.
In that compare, like general versus specific compare and contrast timeline space.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's a great clarifier. We are going to need to shift to our wrap up. Jackie, did you have something you wanted to add?
Oh, well, maybe I'll just wrap up while I make my last little. Yeah. So actually, I was really glad that Blair and Rebecca expanded on the time, the length or the size of now, because I often find that when I'm overwhelmed, that I've got a large now.
Mm.
So if I reduce my now into more bite-sized chunks,
Yep.
I'm not so overwhelmed. I find that really helps me. Anyway, so it's 8.75 for me tonight.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Jackie. Lise, I just want you to know what we're doing. During wrap up, people are giving a number from 1 to 10 on the value that they've received from the broadcast tonight, what they are able to take home. And they generally share one thing that they're taking out of this that is meaningful to them. I'll let you hear other people. When I come to you, feel free if you're not comfortable doing it. You don't need to participate, but I will make the offer if that's okay. All right. And let's see, Leslie, would you like to participate in wrap up?
Certainly. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, we can.
I did get it fixed. Okay. Tonight was remarkable. A whole bunch of new concepts have been brought forward to me here in understanding how to deal with stress. And just, yeah, I don't always respond well to stress. But I have some insight how to make things better. I'm, testing this whole thing about testing and checking. Becky, you've taught me a lot tonight. It's just great. I'm going to give it a 10.
Wow.
Wow. You know what? Frequently when I'm up on stage, I think it was when I first met, maybe it might have been Patty and Tim and Becky. But anyway, one of the things that I frequently say is, don't believe me, don't trust me, test it, see if it works. Because that's the only thing that really matters. I'm not asking you to believe me ever, or anybody with any of the information here. They're all mind models. Test it to figure it out and see if it works for you and how it works for you. Always.
Well said. Matt, would you like to participate in the wrap up tonight?
Sure.
You had some wonderful things. This is a really relatable topic to you, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot. I only caught like half the call. But once we got the kids to bed, but just hearing some of the stories and seeing some things. But I'm just sitting here looking at the 12 people on the call. And I kind of made a couple comments in the chat of just learning how to. I've had to find different ways to figure out how to get in the now myself. But what I can say is this call, I've been watching everybody get into the now. People have talked about their struggles. This call every week brings everybody and centers everybody, whether or not you've gone through similar struggles or different struggles. I've seen every single person on this call since I've been on here for half an hour talk about something and smile. So again, I've talked about how this can empower people, how this can do these kind of things. Like I say, I've only been here for half an hour, but I think it's a very cool tool. I think this is a very cool call. I think this is a very important tool that more people need to know about. And even to help me in the past trying to get into the now and accept some of the pains and some of the struggles that I've had. It was even suggested to me to help and volunteer if I was able to do so in the same areas of even the hospitals and stuff and realize that it's not just me. There's other people. And that becomes empowering because you can now share the experiences and grow together, and it actually becomes a stronger bond and a stronger thing that starts to spread to other people. So yeah, I've seen every single person, as each one of you talked on here since I've been on, every single person smiled. So that tells me that everybody knows how to get to the now. It's just now learning how to repeat it. So that's what I see. That's what I heard. I can give it close to a 10 right there, just because of just seeing how you guys all reacted to all the conversations here. So I thank you all.
Thank you, Matt. Lise, would you like to participate in the wrap up?
Yeah. Matt, it was great to see you on the call. Thanks for coming. Anyway,
Yeah, sorry I missed a couple. I went on holidays for a week, so I'm glad I'm
no
back.
worries. You're entitled.
Well, thank you for asking. And I really like this container, this conversation. It's wonderful. For me, it's more like take a step back and observe what's happening and breathe. And the questions that come up when I do qigong or when there's other stuff is like to be in the present moment. So, am I safe? Yep. Is there anything I need to worry about now? No. So, is it real? No. So, that self-talk is more like, I've heard it. Thank you. I don't know how to put it in the concepts that you've brought forward, but it's basically just be grounded and balanced, breathe, and be in the present moment, and bring that in my future self.
Mhm.
Well, we were very, very glad to have you here. Do you have a number that you would give us from 1 to 10?
Earlier, I was thinking of a 9 because it was like tops.
Great.
Awesome.
You have a lot of the, sort of instinctually, you've identified a number of the concepts that we use with my models. So I think you'll enjoy getting to familiarize yourself with our names and labels. And there's a lot of crossover, Lise. I think you'll find this a well-aligned place to be. So
I've met, oh, sorry,
Okay.
I've met, I forget, Holden. I know him I've met him years ago, 3 times. Very, very nice man. Very well aligned and wonderfully well balanced. So,
He
yeah.
is, and through qigong, there's a lot of stuff that I can do. So otherwise, I might even like going to acupuncture, I would have gone on medication. And once you have that label, you have it for life. So for me, it's more like, how can I empower myself? And just speak my truth and just keep going forward. And Lee Holden is awesome.
Lee.
His mom taught yoga and did other stuff, but he wanted to, if I can say that briefly, look at ways how to make people happy when he was studying psychology and there was no solution. So it was through a wound, tailbone when he was playing soccer semi-pro at Berkeley while studying there. 3 weeks on anti-inflammatories and stomach pains, not feeling better, not being able to walk well. So all of that. And it brought him to go to the acupuncturist because he had done karate when he was younger. And he had a couple of treatments, was 75 to 80% better, then learned Qigong. And ever since then, he's been running with that ball and he's done his homework. So when I know I'm in a safe container, I say yes.
Yep.
And I'm going to look forward to ordering your book because I remember you were going to be publishing it soon. That was a little while ago. So I dates I'm not all that good with, but just to say that as a sign language interpreter, I work with all kinds of people, emotions, children, teenagers, adults, parents. So I've just taken a step back and I'm doing more TLC and self-care.
Well
So,
done.
and I really liked the conversations and the models that you offered back then. So I'm going to brush up on that. Thank you, Blair.
You're very welcome.
We are glad to have you with us, Lise. Brent, would you like to participate in the wrap-up tonight?
Yeah, I'll participate. As always. Um, I enjoyed going through assumptions a little more, finding out more about the assumptions, and that gap piece was there. I know we talked about that and identifying, but bringing that up, that split second, that little piece there to have that, because you need to fill those pieces, and that's what you fill it with.
Yeah.
But also putting together that you see like the stress creates, you might have a gap from, you're stressful, so you have gaps, but you fill in it with assumptions, and then those assumptions can also create more stress. So you just build on top of one another. And that process, if you're ineffective, if Becky didn't, in her example, go through and evaluate and test, she could just build it and build it and build it and keep going with it. So it just
Yep.
keeps building on each other. Instead, she chose to go different route and effectively evaluate and test those assumptions and then act on it. So that way they weren't true. And a lot of those assumptions didn't come to be true. And also
Right.
those assumptions, when you do, it's like you're putting those in place and then acting to those assumptions to make them become real. If you're not effectively evaluating, is this true? And testing
Yep.
that, you will act towards what you're constantly thinking about. And then the shifting of the now was interesting as well. Being able to shift that so that way it becomes effective for you and it doesn't create that stressful moment, because sometimes if you don't adjust it, it can, if it's too small, like you were explaining, Blair, you have to make it bigger because it's too small. It just puts maybe too much pressure and that stress there. So, lengthening it out in different, depending on the situation, may be effective for that. So testing that as well, seeing what's going to be effective. So to me, I give it 8.5. Right.
Perfect.
Dwayne, you've been active in the chat. Do you want to participate at all in the wrap-up?
Yeah, sorry, my camera is not working for some reason. So anyway, first of all, y'all don't tell Tim and Becky how I crashed and burned here on my last episode. Basically, I just wanted to tell everybody that I love y'all and that you're loved, and this is a great place to be. I give it a 9.9.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're really glad to have you with us tonight, Dwayne. I hope you'll be back.
Oh yeah.
Shannon, I don't know if you're listening, if you wish to participate in the wrap-up or not. I'm going to give it a minute and say probably not. Okay. Tim and Becky, you want to give us your wrap-up?
Sure, I would love to participate. So I really enjoyed the conversation tonight. There was some really big nuggets that were shared tonight and the conversation was awesome. The process of dealing with stress. I think some really big information was given tonight. I really appreciated for myself the conversation around the gap analysis, Blair. That was something that I had gapped on. And so I appreciated that reminder, and something that I can pay attention to now moving forward is those moments, those gaps, something to be aware of, especially as a coach. And then the other piece that I really enjoyed tonight was, Jane, your question. I appreciated your question about my support with Becky or not. I think that was a valuable piece to have in there. And for those of us that may be supporting others, I think that was a valuable conversation. So I really appreciated your question, Jane. And then it's just great to see everybody on. Lise, it's welcome. Great to see you. And Dwayne, it's awesome to see you here, bro. And just everybody. It was great being on tonight. I really enjoyed it. It was a 9.5 for me.
Thank you.
Every time, can I just say ditto? Cop out.
No, you can't.
I know.
Cheating.
That's what happens when I let him go first,
Yeah.
though. A 9.8 for me tonight. Assumptions are something that I get lit up about because of just how powerful they can be in our lives and shaping what's real for us and the process of that. So I appreciated the conversation immensely. And as Tim mentioned, the gap, Blair, I've experienced it, but I was not naming and labeling it. And as we've chatted many times, that's huge. Being able to name and label what it is that we're experiencing gives us utility. So I appreciate that. And then also the reminder that we do need to make judgments when we don't have enough information. However, and being when we make that, to be able to follow it up with judgment, make sure that we're following it up so that we can get clarity and use out of it instead of having it reinforce ineffective thoughts, assumptions, behaviors, beliefs. And so pairing the gap and the judgment and then evaluation quick on the heels. Is this working? Is it not working? What might I do differently to be able to move through those and not get stuck? Because it's so easy, putting a name and label on something. I can appreciate, Lise, when you said, if you say something, right, I have to use medication for this, all of a sudden you put a name and label to a behavior because of a condition. However, it may or may not be consistently true until you have something to replace it with. So again, testing the assumption, if I do it once, I will always, versus if I do it once, does that mean how do I know? And testing it. And I personally, again, see this in so many areas where I have to literally give myself a timeout. I think something and I go, 2 seconds. What about this is true? How do I know? So that I can get use out of it and navigate the names and labels that happen so quickly, even just in jest, so they don't actually stick and cause issues in my identity, in my world. And so that pairing is super powerful. So again, thank you again for this dialogue tonight.
You're welcome, and thank you for your contribution. You're both incredibly valuable. Blair and Lori, would you like to give us a wrap up tonight?
I will. You want to go?
Oh, I wanted to say I really enjoyed your story and your courage, Becky, that it took to test that. That must have been incredible. Like, it brings me to tears to think about that. The struggle that you went through. It's incredible. Anyway, kudos to you for doing that. That was huge. And look at the growth. It's fantastic. Anyway, this was really great. This is a 10 for me tonight, and the now and everything. But that was a big part.
Yep.
And you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, and thanks to everybody. I love to hear from everybody. Thank you.
For me, it was awesome. It was a very, very good night. Becky, in the wrap up here, you started to get back into the internal self-evaluation alignment piece again. And that we didn't really cover off well. And I was wondering if we need to do more next week on stress and self-identifying and self-aligning. So how to get out of it. I don't know exactly where we're going to go, but that might be a piece to keep in mind.
I think it fits well with next week's potential topic that we can talk about more. So internal self-alignment.
All right, internal self-evaluation and align that with the externally verifiable self-evaluation. That's what Becky talked a lot about today. We just didn't really nail that down in terms
for
of
today, but we didn't get there. But it will carry well to next week.
I think so. Yeah. Anyway, I think we did wonderfully well. I am super happy and proud of Becky, Tim, and you, Patty. And Patty, your management of our timeline is super effective. So thank you.
Oh, and I also want to say, Tim, that was really great that like Jane asked that question about what did you do, and just let her sit back and wow, kudos for you to sit back and let her figure that out. That must have been so hard for you to wow, congratulations. It's great.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Well done.
Yeah.
Yep.
Done.
So I'm at a 9.5 tonight myself. So that's my wrap up.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to give you mine before I pass it to Jane to take us out. Tim and Becky, congratulations. Do you want to share your momentous day today?
Great.
It is our 16th wedding anniversary. We've made it 16 years today.
Yeah.
And so
Woohoo.
been a wild ride, and so grateful for the role that mind models have played individually and also within our relationship, because I would say that the last 5.5 have been something special, having
Yes.
skills and tools to be able to really thrive again as individuals and also collectively. So 16
We
years.
have we have an amazing marriage, and I can attribute a lot of that to these mind models and the skill sets that we've learned here. So greatly appreciate all of what Blair has created. So
Well, it's
thank you.
exceptional to have a relationship, a husband-wife relationship that both uses the mind models. I can say that my models have, you don't see my husband on here, but he's very active with my models and uses them regularly in business and life. And it has dramatically improved our marriage as well. It's probably one of the top 5. We're going to be going on, we're at 42 and a half years. So out of that, I can identify 5, really pivotal additions to our marriage that have improved its quality. And my models is definitely one of those. So from a wrap-up point of view, the gap, that oh crap moment, that little piece, when Becky talked about the oh crap moment, I thought, oh yeah, I know exactly what that is.
Exactly.
And having a name and label for that was just light bulbing. It was just so illuminating to have a name and label for that. So thank you so much for that, Blair. And that was the most valuable thing I took out. I also really found valuable the flexing the size of now, as opposed to, not size of now just being what is it, that we can flex that. And I found that also a really effective idea. So it's a 9.5 for me tonight. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to add on. I'm very proud of my research back in the day. I shared this with Dr. David Redikoff years and years and years ago about the size of now. Like, gosh, this had to be back in the 80s or 90s. Just doing this stuff and talking about size of nows and everything else. Anyway, in about 2021, there was a new research paper published in Psychology Today or something like that, talking about the size of now. A researcher from Canada and Great Britain challenged the long-held assumption that now lasts 3 seconds, which was stated by some other famous psychologist, but was never tested. I was testing my stuff at life skills colleges and figured out there's no freaking way that now can be 3 seconds long for everybody, and everybody is the same size of now. And it varies given circumstance. And I got this wonderful email from Dave Redikoff, from Dr. David Redikoff, stating, Blair, they finally caught up with you, in this one area. And I go, they finally are acknowledging that now has these multiple sizes. And I go, and I've been expounding that for like 30 years prior to that. So from just evidence of how people behave.
Well done.
Yeah.
And bubbles for Tim and Becky. Bubbles for Blair.
Thank you.
So, Jane, would you like to give us your wrap up and take us out?
I would love to. On my wrap up, so what I have come to identify is that I am still very much looking for the names and labels for things. So tonight there were several names and labels that were filled in, or the gaps that, are just either A, missing from my vocabulary, B, missing from my mind, from, whatever. And now I have a name and label to identify that. And so, and then of course, seeing and hearing Becky's story and the impact that it not only had on her, but on, wow, if this is one of those things that could revolutionize a whole generation of high anxiety people, multiple generations that we're seeing right now. And is that part of your book? I haven't been able to get myself to read it. I'm one of those people that I'm so.
Yes, Becky, your book.
Yeah,
Oh,
your book.
you were talking about your book earlier, Blair. So
No,
Yeah.
yours.
in my book, Jane, I can confidently say that it will be a journey that will bring tears and smiles and laughs.
Oh,
It
okay.
really illustrates exactly what was going on for us during the first year. So
Yeah.
if you want to crawl inside somebody's head who's gone through that and be able to hear and see through their words, especially filtering with the mind models of what that looks like. And a lot of what I do is because I'm acutely aware of the ripple effect of who can I control and what can I influence. And based on that, do I want the influence to be uplifting and helpful, or do I want it to be retracting and tearing down, because it could go on either side of the line?
Mhm.
And so that is something for me, even being on the BDE and the things that we do, is I am very firmly rooted in what's possible and not in being a victim of circumstance, because moments are moments. They change, now they're past. What we do is predicated on now.
Yep.
And we need to shape that.
So it is going to be a challenge for me to be able, but I'm glad to be able to read it, because I tend to live things that I read. So I'm glad to hear that there is uplifting and humor and all that too, because I do know that the ending, it has, for me, just hearing your story, I know it has more than one ending. And so but that's because you have this wonderful life, and your current ending has not happened, but it is an amazing story that is unfolding before. Ooh. Okay.
No worries. Keep going.
That's okay. Anyway,
worries.
so tonight for me is definitely a 10. I was going to say 10, 9.8. No, it's definitely a 10. Very impactful. I got a lot out of it. And at the same time, I find courage in, from who you are. And I am very grateful and feel honored to have gotten a chance to meet you too. It's been amazing. So with that, thank you everybody for being here. I popped into the chat where you can find the replay on YouTube. If you guys could go by, subscribe, like, and make a comment if it's appropriate for you in your heart, please do so. Later in the week, the Facebook version will also be up. Tell your friends, invite them out. Or share the video. This one of the really cool things about YouTube is you can share a video on YouTube to other people, and it might be just the ticket that they need to discover mind models for themselves. And that's our way of giving back to Blair all that he is giving us. So, until next week, everybody, thank you.
Right. Go team.
Thank you,
We'll see
everybody.
next week. Until later.
Bye-bye.